I think it's human nature that people are using this political landscape as an excuse. Our politics say it's okay, so now it's okay for us to really put down other groups.
Hello, my LGBTQs, and welcome back to another episode of A Jaded Gay. I'm Rob Lovelace, and today I am a jaded gay because I went to get drinks with this guy I met on Bumble for a first date, and overall the date was really good. Like, we spent 3 hours talking. We got pretty deep about some things, which I wasn't totally expecting, but it was kind of refreshing to have those conversations, and we seemed like we were on the same page with things, and then the last 10 minutes of the date, it just totally went downhill. I don't even really remember how this came up in the conversation, but he started telling me that he didn't understand how people could just throw away a relationship after somebody cheats. And he says, because fidelity is really hard. Like, that's not something I want to hear on a first date. And then right after that, he goes, like, I know myself and I get flirty when I get drunk. So strike number 2. And then as we're going to close out our cards, he's talking to somebody at the bar and like not in a flirty way, just having a conversation. But then they started talking about some guy who was standing near us and they were checking out his butt. And like, obviously I've checked out a butt before. I'm not a prude, but I've never done that in front of somebody on a first date. So needless to say, there will not be a second date. And it was just really disappointing because, like I said, the whole date had been really good for like the 2 hours and 50 minutes before that. And then the last 10 minutes, just downhill. But the silver lining, at least, is that when he was telling me that he thought fidelity was really hard, I kind of tuned out because I knew that conversation was not going anywhere positive. And I also heard at the bar they were playing Better the Devil You Know by Kylie Minogue, which like I was not expecting because for some reason, like we've talked about before, America has just never really embraced Kylie Minogue. But you know what America has unfortunately embraced? Hostility towards the LGBTQ plus community. I mean, we've been seeing it over the past few weeks, months, years that there's just increasingly terrible rhetoric against the LGBTQ plus community. We've seen an increase in anti-LGBTQ plus legislation, an increase in hate crimes, and it's really a scary time. And I personally blame that on the fact that we have a bully in the White House. So today we have a very special guest joining us to talk about bullying against the LGBTQ plus community and some actions we can take to kind of dismantle some of that hate and be a little kinder in society. But before we dive into the topic, you know the drill. Let's pull our tarot card. So we drew a major arcana today, and that is the Wheel of Fortune. So this is indicating something big. This is the 10th card in the major arcana, and in numerology, 10 represents the completion of a cycle or chapter and the beginning of a new one. So when we draw this card, it's telling us that there are big changes and a turning point on the horizon, but it's all positive because we have good luck and karma on our side. Specifically, the Wheel of Fortune is reminding us that the wheel is always spinning, which represents that life is constantly changing. Sometimes when we spin the wheel, we don't like what it lands on, and sometimes we do. But this card is letting us know that even when things aren't going our way, it's not permanent. The wheel will spin again, and positive outcomes will return eventually, because ultimately, everything is cyclical. Remember, 10 signifies the ending of a cycle and the beginning of another one. So if we've been going through a rough time, this card is indicating that we're coming to the end of that chapter and the beginning of a new one. And by understanding the cycles of life on a deeper level, we can build our own strength and resilience to overcome any hardships and move forward to a better tomorrow. And with that in mind, I am very excited to welcome our next guest. He is an author and speaker focused on raising bullying awareness. Please welcome Mike Keller. Hi, Mike. How are you today?
Really good. A beautiful day. How about you?
Doing well, doing well. Thank you for coming on today. I'm really excited to have you. It's a really important topic we're going to be talking about today, especially in light of the current political and social climate. So it's going to be a heavier episode, but definitely something important to talk through. And I think it'll be empowering in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. We stick together and everything works out.
Definitely. Well, to kick things off, can you introduce yourself to the listeners? Tell them a little bit about what you do, how you identify, your pronouns, background, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so my name is Michael Keller. I'm a writer. I've published 5 books so far, working on another one. I'm mostly talking about bullying. In all my books, there's some aspects of bullying. one of the books is about coming out of the closet awkwardly, because I came out later in life, um, in my 40s, and I own a couple small businesses. So I work in the field doing a bunch of, we have a janitorial business and a consulting business, and I speak with a bunch of schools and small companies about anti about not bullying and just being a better person. Um, and my pronouns are he, him, and I'm married and have a 2-year old, almost three actually, 3-year old son. Um, and we live in Connecticut, and we have a really a good life, I think, by helping others, and is a good way to live.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And I like to ask all my guests today, are you a jaded or non-jaded gay and why?
Um, I That's a good question. I think that I've since I was closeted so many years of my life, I think that I'm more um jaded now. But I think that I I really try to focus on helping the younger groups mostly, and even some. I actually was in a senior citizen home talking to a couple um, small groups where they came out of the closet in the senior care homes, which was really amazing because they're actually starting to live their lives in their 70s. So I think that if we just talk to everyone and be ourselves and not have that inner homophobia, which I had for so long, it kind of makes us a little more jaded.
I think sometimes too, though, having that sense of jadedness can push us to try to create a more non-jaded world for the LGBTQ plus community.
Absolutely, I agree.
Well, you touched upon your career a little bit. Can you tell us more about the work you're doing to address bullying and why this is such a focus for you?
So I talk a lot about bullying, because I really believe there's a genuine need, in the not only in schools but in the workforce. So that's why when I do consulting, and teamwork consulting with companies, we talk a lot about all the different types of scenarios and LGBTQ plus and being more accepting to everyone. And I think by doing that, it opens up the eyes in the corporate world, to be a little more open, especially in this nowadays. It seems like it, since, not to be too political, but with the politics going on, there's a bigger need for it. Um, so I try to talk to them about common sense and really just treating others how you want to be treated, and more importantly, how you would want someone to treat your family, in the business world. So bringing common sense into the workforce is really the key that is unfortunately missing nowadays. Um, so that's why I do a lot of the consulting work with the companies.
And can you tell us about your own personal experiences with bullying and how that impacted your life?
So I was always in the closet going through school, um, and I always heard. And one of my one of your episodes was amazing because it just hit me so hard. Um, when the episode said, "That's so gay," and that was a big one. And when I was growing up in high school, that was the biggest saying around, and that was 30 years ago. Um, and they were really saying that. So that happened a lot. And those words, that's when I always used to think sticks and stones could hurt your bones, but names will never hurt. Words are really more powerful than the sticks or that you could, they're in the saying. So I really hid it so much in school, not just for being gay, but for being myself and not wanting to do the things I really wanted to do. I was nervous to do. I didn't even want to write, which writing was my passion, because I was afraid of writing sincerely and true. And then when I was another big thing that happened was when I was 14. I grew up really Catholic, and I talked to my priest, privately and told him about my feelings. And his words were that I'm going to go to hell unless I fight it. And at 14 years old, my father passed away a year earlier. He was kind of like the father figure, and I believed him. So I carried that for years, and didn't want to go to hell. Um, so that's when I realized, once I realized that the priest was really wrong, um, I started to change the way I thought and fix myself. And now I try to put that onto and teach mostly younger people, that they're not going to go to hell if there is a hell, um, which I don't believe. But I think that's what really put me to have a passion for stopping bullying and teaching common sense for words, mostly the words that we use.
And can you describe the current landscape of bullying faced by LGBTQ plus individuals, especially in schools and workplaces?
So in the schools, it's sort of like, and the saying, I was talking with a high school recently, and the same thing with the words. But now it seems like, since the past 6 months of election going on, and all of that, it seems like people are more open to bully LGBTQ plus people, because it seems like it's more acceptable to bully. So I think it's really key that kids are focusing on hearing from adults and from schools and teachers that their words really are um, damaging. I think more so in the past 6 months than in the past few years. So I think that the landscape is a little bit harder right now, especially in the schools, but also in work. I have a really good friend that works in the government, and she had to take her pronouns off of her email, which really was a big deal for her, and her partner, who's trans, um, because that's a big part of their life. So now you can't do that in the government job. So government work is, I think, the bullying is really happening right now, where I think that we have to really focus on showing on our own websites and showing on our posts, that we just won't stand for that.
Like you touched upon, the political landscape has been very hostile recently. End of last year, there was another contentious presidential election. And with the current administration, we're seeing a lot of negative remarks. So I was wondering, do you think the rhetoric used throughout political ads and debates plays a role in anti-LGBTQ plus bullying?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's human nature that people are using this political landscape as an excuse. So uh, the excuse is that, hey, our politics say it's okay, so now it's okay for us to do this, and to really put down other groups. But what I've always found, and even in politics, is it's the weak ones that do the bullying. They're the ones they're bullying to push their insecurities onto others, and they're trying to go after um, all types of people, minorities, LGBTQ plus, um, and it's the political landscape really does need to change. I think we need to change close to homes, in this, politics that are in our own communities, all the way up to the major presidential race.
Definitely, because I think sometimes we can make more of an immediate impact in our own communities and our own local governments that then kind of hopefully cascades upwards at the federal level.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. Most people do not. We A lot of people don't vote locally. We only tend to vote. A lot of people tend to vote only once every 4 years, when we really should be more involved in the local politics, and including school boards and so on.
obviously, talking through all this, it can feel like a very bleak, depressing environment where there's a lack of control and we might be wondering what we can do. So I'm curious, through the work you've been doing, what strategies have been most effective in reducing or preventing bullying of LGBTQ plus people?
The main thing is to not be silent, is to talk and use common sense, and really having pure curiosity to in the subject. So talking to our local leaders, getting involved, but going back to common sense, which we we tend not to do because we're all constantly so busy and listening to 24-hour news. But if we just go back to the common sense approach and use love and curiosity, and not be silent, but to do our voice where we can be heard on our posts, on our social media, um, in the way we talk to people every day out in the streets. I think that really makes a difference. We change our little bubble, we change our worlds, um, and that really does. It's it's contagious. It'll go on to the next 10 and next 10, and eventually, I think it'll all um, get so much better.
And I think right now there's a lot of discourse, and discourse isn't always a bad thing, but it's how it's conducted. So there's a lot of really exaggerated, inflated statements, a lot of yelling, and a lot of just, clickbait headlines people are making. And I think it's natural to feel that anger or resentment or whatever when you feel like your identity is under attack. But it sounds like what you're saying is we should really be trying to come from a place of curiosity. So for those people who may not understand us or try to empathize with us, if they could approach us from a place of curiosity instead of like saying this doesn't exist, there's only two genders or there's only this, instead trying to question a place of why do you feel this way, or I'm not, this is my opinion on it, but why is this your opinion, to kind of really come to a place of healthy discourse and try to find some understanding in the middle.
Absolutely. That's the only way, and that curiosity is, prejudices are really a fear of the unknown. So when we're curious, we really do um, get rid of a lot of that hatred and like you said, discourse. Um, I'm learning Spanish right now, because I've always been curious of all the different countries, and I go to Ecuador quite a bit, and so I think by learning someone else's language, it's the same thing. I'm curious because I know that I'm not open to knowing a third of the world because I can't speak their language. So that curiosity of learning the language is really helping me to become a better person and to get to know 30% more people in the world. And it's the same thing with our sexuality. If we could get people curious just to who we are and how we think, they're going to understand that we're the same as them. It's just who we love, and um, is what makes us who we are. It's not that I think people need to be a little more open-minded and curious, and not afraid that we are trying to um, change them or change the way they think. We're just showing them who we are, and that's where I think people need to change.
And how do you address the unique challenges faced by transgender and non-binary people in the context of bullying?
So my major thing, where I think that it helps a lot, is the Trevor Project website, trevorproject.org. I I go on that website and show them, um, that knowing that there's people out there that are there for them, and there's a community, so they're not alone. I think that really makes a big difference, and I 100% believe in the Trevor Project. There's so many others, kidshealth.org, Safe Spaces. Um, there's a lot of great online resources, but I think that getting them to those resources and telling them to go into the safe spaces in the schools, um, and hopefully they continue with that, and talking to their people that they could trust 100%, is how they we could help. especially the trans, well, all kids, but the trans kids right now, because of the politics, are are really the focus. And I was talking to one person who thought that um, that she's not a valid human being now. I mean, it's so crazy with the way the news is portraying things, um, and they have to have that person that they trust, and also organizations like the Trevor Project that could really give them a lot of resources online, a lot of videos, a lot of um, education. Because in some schools, especially in rural areas, there's not a lot of um, places to go to. There, fear. But that's what I think the online resources is a home run right now.
And you wrote a couple books about LGBTQ plus bullying, including Room 308 and Bullies Among Us. So can you tell us more about those?
So Bullies Among Us um, is a book. It's half for adults and half for children, but they intermingle. Um, and it's mainly about bullying in the workforce and bullying in school, which gives a little bit of it gives a. But I interviewed a lot of people, and it gives their story. So it gives short personal stories of how people overcame and went through the bullying. So it's more of a non-fictional book. Room 308 was my first fictional book, um, and it's a story about a vampire, which is a true story in my dreams. He was in my dreams since I was a teenager, Vladimir, who helps Josh in the book, who happens to be me, um, to come out of the closet. And it's a really fun, fast paced book that helps kids mostly kids and teenagers to get through that coming out of the closet. So it's basically a coming out of the closet awkwardly book um, that will help to let you know that a lot of the fears that you have and are really in our own heads. Just like Vladimir was in my head, that you have a lot of inner fears that may not come true. So you should talk to your best friend or your teacher, your mother, whoever you really trust, um, about what you're feeling. And that's why I really wrote that book, because I thought um, that my family wouldn't accept me, and they actually love my husband more than me now. So, um, so it was all fears in my own head that I had that never came true. So most of our fears are never going to come into tuition. So I think it's important that you read books or read articles and watch podcasts that talk about it, so that you're less fearful of what you're going through.
Like we talked about a little bit earlier, right now, the world can feel very overwhelming. There's so much going on, and especially in the realm of LGBTQ plus rights, a lot of concerns. I think people aren't sure how they can get involved. And even if somebody's not a writer or an activist, I think we as a community all play a role in ending bullying. So how can we do that on a personal level?
I say we really have to start on a personal level, is starting with our own words and being more cautious of what we say, um, and changing that bubble that we're in, or even around our table. Um, be careful of what you're saying around other people. Like, for instance, that's so gay. Um, that's so important. I think that the big thing is changing our words, changing our thoughts, and then our words, and then getting involved with local communities, getting involved with schools, trying to get the homeless shelters, just going out and doing some more volunteering in the world that we're in, just our area, and then using our good words that changes more than I think a lot of uh, larger ways. I think if we're changing and just showing love and giving hugs and listening, I think the biggest part is when a kid comes to you, um, or if you're talking to someone who's having who's who's going through situations is we need to listen more and talk less. Just listen to what's going on and give more hugs. I was never a hugger until I was recently, but I think you need to hug more. The world needs more hugs. That's a good a little piece of advice.
I love that. The world definitely does need more hugs. And something else that jumped out to me from your answer there is really watching the words we speak. And especially when it comes to youth, I've heard before that, kids are like sponges. They will soak up whatever they hear. And for myself personally, growing up, I heard some negative sentiments about the LGBTQ plus community. Like, I think a child needs a mother and a father, or I like Ellen DeGeneres because she doesn't flaunt her lifestyle, or people having issues that a principal was openly gay because they thought it was a bad influence on kids. And then when I came out at 21, suddenly those messages were erased, where the people around me were like, oh, we support, somebody getting married, or we support a gay person being a parent, whatever. And even though people might have changed their stances, that didn't erase the messages I had heard for years growing up that I was then internalizing. And I think it goes beyond just our sexual orientation. For anybody's background, anybody's identity, you don't know what people have gone through. So be careful of what words you use, because you don't know how that might land with somebody or what they might internalize.
Absolutely. The internal homophobia is what I had, and it's from listening um, to like all those words growing up. I know that my parents um, had nothing against. Well, back then it was everyone was tending to be against gays and lesbians. Now, it's more it's all gay, lesbian, trans. You have all the different aspects, which every single one of them, there's some harsh words for every single group, and and I think people are a little bit, like you said, are starting to be a little more careful and change the way they think, but they still have, from when they were younger, from what they heard, they sometimes will say things that will affect us tremendously. Um, as like when you said when you came out at 21, um, you still today, I'm sure, hear different things that come back and give you flashes. I hear it every day. Different things. People are a lot more careful around me because I only show love, and I think being silent is not the answer. So when I hear something like that, I tend to always say, "Hey, that's not really right to say," and I bring it to people's attention and make them feel a little uncomfortable. But hopefully, they won't do it in front of someone else.
Earlier on, you had mentioned the Trevor Project. I was wondering what other resources are available for LGBTQ plus people, especially LGBTQ plus youth who are experiencing bullying.
So online, kidshealth.org is another great um, group to really get involved with. Um, I I like them because it's they do have local resources as well. But mainly, I in the schools for the youth, there are safe spaces, and there are typically two or three teachers, from what I found in going into different schools throughout the country. Even in the urban areas, there's teachers that are specially trained to talk with kids. Even most are gay, LGBTQ plus, um, but they don't need to be, and they really do are trained to listen more. So I think the school systems are a really good resource in public schools. I'm not so certain with private schools, but I'm sure there are some resources. But the school system, they do have great resources in the school, um, because not everyone will, especially a younger kid, will go to counseling. Counseling is key, but if you can't afford it, or you don't want one parent to know, that's hard. So we're in the school, it's keeping it a little more separated from more private.
And what steps can allies take to effectively intervene and support someone who is being bullied for their LGBTQ plus identity?
So so I tell people, never be silent. You have to make the steps and stand up and talk with whoever is bullying, has to be spoken with. Most bullies um, will not get physical. and that's been a fact that I think it's 7% of bullies actually, when confronted by an adult or another person, it's not they're not going to escalate. Usually they'll back down because of the way bullies are really weak. They're weaker. So I think most bullies are, once confronted, they will back down, and hopefully with the talking and discussing with them, you could change the way they think. I've seen so many times that I've spoken to the who were considered the bullies, um, break right down and really didn't know what they were doing. A lot of times, especially in the youth, they don't realize how harmful they're being. They say, "Oh, I thought it was funny," and so on, not understanding that they are really hurting the LGBTQ plus. So I think speaking up and talking with that bully directly is the key, with not being silent.
What words of encouragement do you have for those who are experiencing bullying?
I think the biggest thing is to know that you're not alone. That we've so many of us have been through it and have been bullied. I think knowing that there's a huge community there for you, um, and with you, that's the key. I think knowing that you're not, um, that you have people to talk to, even if you don't have anyone in person, having the online communities, on social media, at the Trevor Project, different organizations, but knowing that you're not alone is really the key, and never give up because you're stronger than you really may think you are. And once you get, and it's not forever, that it will pass. It gets easier as we go through it, because once it's happened to you once, you're really a little bit more ready for the next time, and you're just going to keep growing and growing, and knowing that since you're not alone, you're going to be able to help others, in the future.
And connecting it back to the tarot, the Wheel of Fortune, again, this card is really encouraging us to embrace the cycles of life and work to understand them on a deeper level, so that way we can build up our strength and resilience. And just like the Wheel of Fortune reminds us, things are temporary. So when things aren't going our way, when we're feeling down, we need to remind ourselves that we will move on from this and there will be a positive outlook on the horizon. And I think this card goes in hand with the metaphor we've talked about on quite a few of our episodes about the pendulum swinging back and forth, politically speaking. And right now we definitely are in a backward swing. And like Mike talked about today, a lot of the rhetoric, politically speaking, has a really negative impact on society of how the LGBTQ plus community is treated. And right now we do see an increase in bullying in our schools and even workplaces. So it's really important that we're keeping ourselves safe and developing safe spaces for those around us. We need to utilize those resources to take care of ourselves if we are experiencing bullying, and also try to find ways to feel empowered to speak up against bullying if possible. And remember, your safety is always the most important, so only do so if there is a safe way to stand up for yourself. And I really like that expression Mike said, the world needs more hugs. So I think that's really encouraging us to spread some kindness in the world. It's really easy when we're feeling like we're under attack to just lash out and use harsh language and critique and yell and scream and throw a fit. Believe me, I want to do that. And sometimes behind closed doors, I do. But ultimately, bringing that conversation out into public, it's really not going to be productive. And there are going to be people there who will never understand where we're coming from and don't care to understand us either. So while we're in this difficult climate, I think it's really important that, one, we're promoting kindness within our community, and two, putting kindness out in the world. Even those who disagree with us, like Selena Gomez said, kill them with kindness. We are not going anywhere. And no matter how much they attack us, how much they try to revoke our rights, we will still be here because queer people have always been there. It's been a very challenging time, but like the Wheel of Fortune reminds us, there's going to be another spin, and we have good luck and karma on our side. So we are about to move forward to a more positive outcome. So really, as challenging as it may be, try to build up your strength and resilience, remain optimistic, and as always, be kind. Well, Mike, thank you for coming on today and sharing these important insights. It's a really tough world right now, so I think it's really great advice you gave to give the world more hugs, really watch our words, and practice promoting kindness both within our community and outside of it. As we come to the end of the episode, I was wondering, can you read us an excerpt from one of your books?
Oh, absolutely. So in Bullies Among Us, actually, it's one little sentence actually explains it all. We cannot protect our children from everything bad that will happen to them, but we can send them out into the world better prepared. That one sentence in the book really sums up what we talked about, actually. So it was a good sentence, that we really just need to focus on teaching them, and then letting them fly, letting them to grow and help others.
Well, Mike, thank you again for coming on today. Can you please tell the listeners where they can connect with you, find your books, find resources, all the things?
Oh, yeah. It's pretty simple for me. It's michaelshawnkeller.com is the website where all my books and social media is on there. And Facebook and Instagram, it's Michael Shawn Keller on those. So it's really, I keep it simple with my name.
And after you're done listening to this, definitely connect with Mike, check out his book, show him some support. And you know the drill for the podcast. If you have any questions or feedback, you can reach out to me, rob@ajadedgay.com. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. 5 stars only. I greatly appreciate it. For more information on this topic, blog posts, links to merchandise, socials, all that fun stuff, you can visit the website at jadedgay.com. You can connect with the podcast on Instagram, TikTok, SoundCloud, and YouTube at A Jaded Gay Pod. You can follow me personally, Rob Loveless, on Instagram at Rob_Loveless. Also, if you're feeling generous, consider supporting the podcast on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. That gets you instant access to episodes ad-free, a day early, plus exclusive monthly bonus content. Or if you just want to access the monthly bonus episodes, you can purchase them for $3 each. And if you're scared of commitment, don't worry, I get it. You can make a one-time donation on Buy Me a Coffee for any dollar amount, and both the Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon are at A Jaded Gay Pod. And remember, every day's all we have, so you gotta make your own happiness. Bye!